Welcome to this episode on how to prepare for imminent war. Now, if you haven't watched part 1 or part 2, I want you to go back and watch those first. It's very important. Not that each thing I say falls exactly in sequential importance or anything, but because the very first things we mention in the first episode are going to give you a foundation before you start doing any of the specific physical things that we're going to cover, like in today's episode. Anyway, we've got some good strategies for you. I hope you won't go away. Stay with us. Today I want to give you just a couple of very simple but strategic things you can actually do in the event that war is imminent. Now, at the time of the filming of this video, it's kind of pressing in on all of us, and we're all praying around the world for the people who are in the Ukraine, who are suffering right now as war is imminent in their area. And because they are experiencing it, we're all kind of feeling their pain, and we're watching them closely to see what they're going through. So what I'm sharing with you today are a couple of things based on what I've seen them already dealing with right as the beginning of this is starting to unfold. All right? The first thing I want to give you to do in the event of you finding out that war might be very imminent to your area, wherever you find yourself, is this. I talked to my dad on the phone the other day, and he said, go buy a gas can. If you have noticed the news stories right now, you're going to see long lines of people standing for hours waiting to get to some of the 1 or 2 gas stations that even have gas available to them. And they're using any kind of bottle or gallon jug or refuse that might hold something in it, and they're bringing that in the line to fill up with every drop that is allowed to them once they get up to finally get a little bit of gas. So I want to encourage you right now on the front end, get a gas can. If you can afford a couple, get a couple of extra ones. And in the event that you know war is truly imminent right at your door, you're going to want to make sure you fill those up before everything shuts down. And once you get those filled up with gas, I want you to put stabilizer in them so that they can hold for maybe up to a year or even 2 years without any problem, okay? It's important that you have that on hand. If you can afford maybe 5 gas cans or 10, it's okay to have a few extra and put them empty in your garage or wherever you have a place for them right now, so that when the time is needed, you can either hand them to a friend who might need one or go and fill them up yourself if war comes your way. Now, while we're talking about gas, I want to mention something else. I want to mention fuel sources in general. If you remember the very first episode of PREPSTEADERS that we ever did several years ago, it was the first thing I recommend that you do to become a PREPSTEADER. If you hadn't already, I was encouraging you to go out and buy a kerosene oil lamp and get it filled with oil, learn how the wick works, learn how to use it, practice a bit with it. If you haven't done anything else, it's important that you also have a fuel source for light and heat in your home. And so one of the first ways to do that is make sure that you have an oil lamp filled with kerosene. And there's a kind that is clean burning that is not hard on you to breathe the air inside if you use that kerosene indoors, and that's the kind you want to get to fill it up. Okay, continuing on that process of talking about fuel sources though, I want you to let your mind go. Okay, so we talked about gas, we talked about perhaps a kerosene oil lamp, but what are other fuel sources that you might need that you can go ahead and identify right now and list them down, because you'll not think of them in a crisis. You'll be so stressed out, you'll forget, hey, that was a fuel source I could have taken advantage of. Go ahead and identify those right now, and if it's in your power to do so, go ahead and stock up a little extra or a lot extra, depending on what your situation is, what your resources or lack thereof are, and how close war seems to be to your area. So I'm thinking of gas. If you run on propane, you need to get some of that extra. If you are going to cook with wood, which is strongly what I recommend, I don't want any of you to have a house that doesn't have a fireplace that you can cook in. But if you don't have that, if you're in an apartment or something like that, I want you to get yourself a little rocket stove that can run also on any number of things, but specifically I'm talking about wood right now. If you have a barbecue outside that you can light a fire in, whatever, think about what your situation is and prepare with the fuel sources that would be needed for that. So I'm talking about gasoline, kerosene, propane. I'm talking about wood. I'm talking about the things that are going to fit your specific situation if you were to need to stay right there in your home, not travel. Right now we're talking about if you needed to stay right where you are. If you've listened to Selko, like I mentioned in one of our previous episodes, talk about the Balkan War, he said, I think he was mentioning that by the end of that year that they were without supplies, they had used up every single door in the house, and the cabinet doors and every source of wood that could be burned was used up. So I want you to identify those for so many different reasons, but one of the main ones would also include not just heat and food preparation, but sanitization. You've got to have a fire or something that can sanitize things around the house. All right, so we've talked about fuel sources. I hope I've got your wheels spinning, and I hope you run and take some notes and see what you need to have for your plan on that. Okay, next, if war was imminent right now, where you are, I would want to encourage you to do this, and I'll give you the reasons why. I want you to go and find every container you can around your house. Now, that sounds silly, sounds inconsequential. It's an imperative importance right now. Just like we mentioned in that first point about getting fuel and how they're carrying every kind of water bottle and plastic thing and anything that will carry liquid, they're trying to round up and get over there to the gas stations to fill up with. Thinking along those same lines, I want you to go around your house right now. You would be amazed at how many things you've got that you could fill with something. Instead of just being a void, you know, you've got probably a cabinet full of some cups and jars and old plastic, cottage cheese containers, or old Tupperware, or whatever you've got. I don't care if it all has lids that fit perfectly or whatever, but find every single thing that you've got around you. Old water bottles are great for this. Now, you've heard me say in other episodes, I don't recommend storing anything in the plastic water bottles that you get, because many people do that, or in their milk jugs. However, if war is imminent, those rules go out the window. You need that milk jug, it's like gold to you right now. So round up those different things that you've got. And then I want you to do this. I want you to fill every single one of those containers with one of these things. Either oil, because for cooking, oil goes rancid pretty quick. It's not one of those forever foods that's going to last a long time. And when it runs out, it's very difficult to cook. It's very difficult to get the fats that you need in the different things that you might be able to forage, or all of the other things that you've stored. So you're wanting to fill those empty containers, especially the glass ones, I would recommend highly, fill with oil. And the ones that you don't fill with oil, I want you to fill with beans. And if you don't like beans, or you already have plenty of beans stored up, put lentils in there, or peas, or rice. Now, rice, it doesn't have a whole lot of nutrition to it, but it is filling, it is warm, it's going to be a comfort food, and it does have some nutrition value, especially the brown rice, the long grain rice that you could find. I want you to fill up all those containers with that. Or barley is a great one, or wheat. Having little containers, all different, all almost throwawayable containers filled with these things. Not only are they going to provide for you, which is the first and foremost thing you're going to need. Secondly, if there was someone who came to your house and wanted to raid your supplies, you've got something to hand them that's of value and help to them. It's in a castaway container. It does not appear that you are a hardcore, industrial strength prepper that's got all kinds of hidden shelves full of stocked specialty type rations or something like that in some back room. It gives you something right there to hand them, that old plastic water bottle clear filled to the brim with barley, or it lets you have something that you're going to need. And it also is a great way to use the space. You've got so much space in your house, and one of the common questions I have people write in and ask is, what am I supposed to do? I live in such a small apartment or such a tight space. I don't have room to store anything. And as soon as you start identifying all of the plastic bottles, the glass jars that you bought pickles in last week and you ate the pickles and now you've got a glass jar there, that's valuable right now in the midst of imminent war. Use that. Don't throw any of it away. On a normal day, I would tell you simplify, get rid of all of the extras in your house. But when war is imminent, the rules change, and you need to think strategically about what is of value and how it can be multi-purpose, how it can be used again and again, and come to be something that could save your life, okay? So think about those containers. Now, I want to stay on that theme and just mention specifically, when each of those containers gets used up, which I hope that you would be using in the event of imminent war, when each of those gets used up, I want you to fill them with water. One of the first things that you'll find out in war is that water is not always plentiful or clean or available, and if it runs out, you're really in a bad place. And so, right now, while you might have still clean water, fill every extra container up with water. And then to go into my point number 3, I want you to do this as an assignment in the event of imminent war. I want you to come up with some creative water catchment contraption, and it'll look different for everybody. You could get as elaborate as you want. If you have time, if you have plenty of money, if the resources are endless, you knock yourself out coming up with the state-of-the-art, very classiest and best water catchment system. For those of you who don't have space, or you're living in an apartment with just a smidgen of a balcony out there into the sunlight, or whatever you have to work with, I want you to think about it and figure out a way to come up with a water catchment system for yourself. I remember my grandmother, who I loved so much, lived up in Iowa, and she had the best garden in the whole wide world. But even with all of the fertile soil and all the rain that they got that made everything perfect, she still had a all used up. One of them was an upside down cake safe. I remember that. She had that underneath one gutter at one corner of the house. She had one of those old plastic wash basins underneath a different gutter, and a barrel under one of the other gutters. At each of the corners of their house, you get my point, they came up with some creative way to catch the water. She knew it was purer than what was going to be coming out of her city water through her faucet. She knew that the plants love that rainwater, and so she already had it collected and was always ready with enough water. I love that, and that wasn't in a time of war. Now is the time for you to come up with your strategy for how you're going to catch and use that water, okay? There are all kinds of videos on it online, and I'll let you Google that or search it on DuckDuckGo and find out the methods that's going to work for your situation. But I want you to come up with a way to catch water and then, of course, purify it and be ready to make it usable again. All right, those are your 3 assignments. I have plenty more for you in the next episode, but I want to give you one bonus thought, and that is this. I want you to remember to pray continually. I want you to keep your calm, and I want you to carry on. You've heard some sayings a little bit like that. You might have that on your refrigerator already, but I want you to stay always in a state of prayer. I want you to absolutely stand calmly where you are, and I want you to carry on with the next right thing for the next right moment. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time. God bless you, and go out and be a blessing to someone today. Bye-bye. Hey, there are so many promises that the children of God get to cash in as needed when times get rough. And I want to share one of those with you today. This is right out of the the 91st Psalm there in the middle of your Holy Bible. And it's verses 5, 6, and 7. And it says this: Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor the pestilence that walks in the darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and even 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. That's out of the King James Version. And I hope that you will remember that today. It's getting so dark out. Go out and glow.